Hi, everyone. Today, it's my pleasure to moderate this sixth session on the Azure DataFest organized by Microsoft Singapore. And today, we'll deep dive into the landing zones and how to host your data solutions on Azure. Right. Laurent, if you can move to the next slide. Please note that after this session, there will be two additional sessions, one on how to design a high throughput networking to get your data in and out your landing zones. And finally, the last session will be on security. So please register for these two sessions on the link shown below, ak.ms/Azure DataFest 2021. Next, thank you. At Microsoft, we see sustainability and humanity's response to climate change as one of the greatest challenges of our lifetime. We believe it's not too late to plan for a cleaner and greener future. With Azure, we are committed to put sustainable technologies at the heart of our innovation. As part of our commitment to sustainability, Microsoft Singapore will be planting a tree for every single person attending these events. So thanks a lot for joining these events. Next, few housekeeping rules around these sessions. First of all, this session is recorded and will be available on demand. Please ask your questions throughout the sessions so that we can answer them. And at the end of the sessions, we'll also have 10 minutes to answer some of the questions. To elaborate more on those questions. And of course, you cannot share your videos or audios on this session, only the presenter can. Next slide. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce Laurent. Laurent Leslie is one of the founders of this CAF Terraform framework that will be presented today. So over to you, Laurent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, François, for this introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. It is really my pleasure to lead this webinar today on the Terraform Landing Zone. We are going to have an hour, very exciting time for you to learn how you can build a data and analytics platform on the Cloud Adoption Framework with Terraform Landing Zones. So this is the goal today. It's really hands-on, and it's more focusing on how to do stuff, okay? How to build, how to put your hands dirty, how to go from an architecture to an implementation using the Terraform Landing Zone framework. So first of all, before we go too deep, I want to introduce you briefly about what is the Terraform for Azure Landing Zone. So first of all, it's a provider and a skill ecosystem built on the HashiCorp Terraform framework. It's enabled the innovation from the foundation. So meaning that we believe that infrastructure as code should be everywhere. You need to be able to automate as much as you can using a declarative language. Declarative language means that you don't have to be a software developer. You don't need to write Python code to be able to implement a landing zone on Azure. We got state management, we got version control. We want to minimize human error. We want to simplify the collaboration. But at the end of the day, we want to make it faster. We want you to go faster and being able to focus on building the use case that matters for your business. And today we are going to talk about how to build those data foundations. So the framework we're going to use for this presentation, it's the CAF Azure RM provider that is available on the Terraform registry. François, the moderator of this webinar, will share with you the link in the chat. And we are going to use also another Terraform module, which is the CAF Enterprise Scale, which is designed to build the core platform capabilities in order to provide the governance that is required to move your data safely to Azure. So this is completely open source, so meaning that you can have access, you can become a committer, you can just be a consumer, but we really recommend that you contribute to this community, because that's how we are going to make it even better. So today, as you can see on this slide, there's quite a lot of modules that exist already, and the idea of the CAF Terraform is to be able to compose a complex reference architecture with Terraform when you can glue basically whatever. You see, you've got here some example with compute. It can be an AKS cluster. It can be analytics with Databricks. You can see the Event Hub, the log analytics. And this is the reality. When we want to implement a complex architecture on Azure, you have to glue all those different Azure services together, and that's what we are going to see today in the demonstrations. Okay. Just a little issue on my next slide, bear with me. That's what's happening sometimes when we do live presentation. Just why this next slide is not coming. All right, okay, so let me switch manually, yeah, here. So let me talk about the process, okay? So it's very important that you understand the process. So how do you go from building what we call the platform using enterprise scale? And for those who've been before to that process, maybe you've seen that for the last 2 years, Microsoft has been really promoting the cloud adoption framework and how to focus on building the platform. So the platform is just the foundation of what we do, but the focus of this webinar today is how do you create the landing zone, and then how do you deploy your solution landing zone accelerator. So those solution landing zone accelerator are some reference architecture that will be available, or you are going to build yourself in order to provide the foundation services for the business to be able to mine the data, do some learning experimentation, publish in an AKS cluster, maybe a model that has been trained. You can do a lot of stuff. So today, the focus is just on this part on the right-hand side, but I want also to make sure that you understand the concept of we are operating here an enterprise scale. I want to go a little bit in a few slides to explain what is an enterprise scale. So an enterprise scale, and you got the link on the slide here and also on the chat. It's a prescriptive guidance, coupled with best practice. And also based on different design principles that you need to follow when you want to go and implement the foundation of the core Azure services. So it starts with what we call a management group structure. The management group structure as a top represents your own organization, and then will be split into what we call the platform and the landing zone. So this is why earlier, when I was talking about the platform, this is what I meant, okay? In the platform, you will find some management services, some connectivity, some identity. This is where you got all the core networking services if you need to connect to your on-prem services, to other cloud provider, and so on. You see, so this is really what you need in order to be able to work properly in your landing zone. On the right-hand side, the landing zone, by the way, the structure can be quite flexible here. And you can match different based to your organization, based on the regulation, depending if you are a public sector, if you are financial services, a retailer, you will organize the management group structure of the landing zone in different ways. And all the guidance on the cloud adoption framework will help you to make the right decision and to understand why you need to structure it in a certain way or another way. So for the purpose of the demonstration today, we are going to focus on building a landing zone here under the corp management group that you've got here. So just to show you, when you implement this platform using the CAF Terraform Landing Zone framework, you will end up in a structure like that. You see, we got here a mono repo. So we like the mono repo for the platform because it's quite easy to organize the code. It's quite easy to be able to track all the change, because the platform, as you can see, is something very critical. And we organize in the framework, everything is organized with levels. You see, it's a layered approach where at the bottom of the architecture and the implementation, you see here some credential, the billing role delegation. If you want to provision and automate the subscription creation, then we got a level 1. Level 1 is where we put this enterprise scale, the identity, the management services. The level 2 is where you got the vending machine, the connectivity, the identity, and so on. And I show you just an example. You've got the flexibility. Some customers will get much more complex and advanced services at the level 2. You could see, for example, some GitOps services, including, I don't know, Azure DevOps, GitHub Enterprise, GitLab server. So there's a lot of automation that you would add as well on top of that. But I'll show you just an example on what you can do here. This, if I go in the enterprise scale help me to drive the policy. So you define policies, and then you are going to assign the policy. You want to make sure that before you are building your data landing zone, you want to make sure that everything will be secure. And at the root of this management group, you see the definition root here, I'm going to attach a lot of policy definition. Basically, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. If something has not been configured properly, you want to remediate. So the purpose is to make sure that everything you do will be under a compliance framework that has been defined by your organization. This is the landing zone, and as you can see at the landing zone level, we are going to be a bit more restrictive. So we are going to prevent, for example, IP forwarding. You cannot put a network virtual appliance to do shadow IT. You don't want to do RDP directly from internet. You don't want to have storage account over HTTP, and so on and so forth. So now, talking about the context of a data landing zone, it's very important to focus as well on the policies that will be specific to your data services. And I put a link here on the Cloud Adoption Framework, where you got a list of services that are very relevant when you are building a data landing zone. So it can be on Databricks, as I was showing you, but it can be Data Explorer, Cosmos DB, Container Registry, the cognitive services. And as you are progressing in the implementation of your data landing zone, it is very important to also think about the platform, okay? What do you need to bring in your core platform as new policies in order to make sure that when you are going to build your landing zone, everything will be secure and driven with the policy that you put in place. So you need to think about the enterprise scale as really like a project that will have its own life cycle. You know, some customers are starting the journey on Azure by a migration project. Some customers start directly by building cloud native application, or like we are talking today, a data and analytics platform. You see, you've got different ways to start. So based on the focus that you are going to give for your initial implementation on Azure, you will have to tweak the policies in the enterprise scale to make sure that they're going to reflect the control that you want to put in place. So let me switch gears and focus on how do we create a landing zone and how do we deploy those solution accelerator. Just put my timer on. Okay. So this is an example of a reference architecture for a data landing zone. So what you see on yellow, it's a subscription. All this rectangle represent a landing zone with some data services. You can see that this landing zone can talk to additional data landing zone and can also talk to the management, the identity, and the connectivity. What you don't see here, it's also all the policies, the role-based access control for the operating model that are coming from the enterprise scale to make sure that you will put the guardrails that you've been defining in your enterprise scale in this landing zone. So now in the CAF at CAF Terraform Landing Zone framework, we are calling that the level 3 and the level 4. I don't know if it is visible here, but you can see you got two persona. The green persona are still the platform. The platform people are the one who are building the level 0, the level 1, and the level 2. They are also responsible to bring for you some platform services who are critical, because those platform services need to have high privilege, for example, to do a VNet peering to a virtual hub. You may want the networking team to control the CIDR blocks that you want to use for your data analytics platform. You may want to use private link to make sure that you won't have any data leakage in your data landing zone, and so on. The level 4 will be more the data platform. That's the project team that you want to delegate this landing zone, and they will be responsible about building the solution and deploying that with a level of delegation and autonomy. So how do we create a landing zone? So in the CAF Terraform framework, we got this Azure subscription vending machine, or ASVM, and you can see here my platform. I remove on purpose the landing zone here, and this is one platform. So the platform that you are building is one for all your business. And then you are going to instantiate a lot of different landing zones. Some of them can be for a service team, another one for a data team, another one maybe for finance, and so on. But the idea here is, based on your platform, you will be able to create additional landing zone to be able to deploy some very specific reference architecture that can be delegated or not to the project team or the service team. So if we take this data landing zone that you got here, this is an example, a billing data landing zone, and that's coming from the Cloud Adoption Framework link that I was showing you earlier. You can see that we are grouping different services in resource groups. So I got networking, monitoring, I got some Databricks, I got some data lake services, I got some metadata, and so on. So you can compose your landing zone by reusing that or using some solution accelerator that we've got also available on our website. So let me switch gears again one more time, and I want to show you through a demonstration how you are building all those level 3. So we are going to see with the Cloud Adoption Framework that in order to prepare my configuration on the platform, I'm going to populate a set of YAML files to define the landing zone that I want to create, and also the level 3 services that I want to deploy. So let me switch to my VS Code. So in this VS Code, so previously I was showing you the platform, and now I'm opening directly my organization DataFest. I've got my landing zone, and I'm going to create a new landing zone, or maybe multiple landing zones for this data management. Okay, I could have called it maybe billing management if I want to be more specific to the picture that I showed you before. What you see here is 3 different TF states that are going to create, actually a little bit more, because you got a dev environment and you got a production environment. So in my dev environment, I'm going to create a subscription, and I'm going to deploy also some resources. And I do the same for the production. So then if I show you the subscription, 2 subscriptions will be created, and this is the landing zone that we are calling before. At the moment, they are attached to my management group corp, but if you want to connect that to a different management group structure, you will just adjust that. And that's where you can have, you see, different folder for different project, different business unit that you are going to adjust. So now this is the interesting part. This is how I'm going to create my different resource. You see my subscriptions for the DataFest dev environment. I'm going to have some resource groups, some virtual network, some virtual hub connection, some NSG to put the security. I need some recovery vault and different security credentials that are going to be created, because don't forget, I want to delegate from a platform ops perspective. I want to delegate that to the data team, and I want the data team to have their own CI/CD pipeline. And for that, I'm going to create a least privilege credential that will have the permission to deploy on the subscription that we are going to build here. And then there's few additional Azure AD groups. Let's say, for example, you've got an existing operating model, you are replicating from an Active Directory on-prem to Azure, and you want to grant access to the data team. You will be able to attach it from here or from the management group, depending on the strategy that you are following. So this is an example when you build a network, you see. So I create my VNet, I put some name, resource, a site door block. I'm going also to create some subnet specifically to Databricks. So there's the egress with all the service delegation that you are going to put on the subnet. You got the private subnet as well. And then you got the NSG. Okay, so the NSG will show you, all the different permission that you need to attach to the subnet in order to get Databricks fully working. So, how do we generate the Terraform configuration file from those YAML? So, if I click on the README in this folder, you can see that I've got a command called rover ignite that is calling an Ansible playbook, different base template. So let me explain you what is the rover ignite. So the rover ignite, it's what we call the CAF Terraform configuration generator. The purpose here is to start with the YAML file that I showed you just before, and then we got some curated Jinja template that are going to process those YAML files to generate some TLVAR files, some READMEs, and also some pipelines. So the goal here is to be able to be extremely repeatable in your process to make sure that when you make a change, you can update a YAML, submit a pull request for an initial review. Maybe a first step of reviewer will say, yeah, all good. And then the second stage will be to run the rover ignite to generate all your pipeline, Terraform state, and the README. And after that, the next step will be to call the rover, which is the tool in our CAF framework, to execute, to call Terraform to deploy your reference implementation. So let's call it. Okay, so I'm opening the terminal, just copy paste this command, and automatically, and you can see I'm not showing you live demo because infrastructure as code takes too much time and I can't deliver all the live execution in the demo. So this is why I put that as a recorded steps. But when you complete, you see all those the rover ignite creating for you the TLVAR file. So now let's review the configuration files that we just created. So we were doing the modification here in the YAML, and now you can see I've got a config file. This is the configuration that has been created. So from my YAML, you can see that under the data management, I've got 3 folders. The first one is to create my storage container, where I'm going to put my remote TF state in order to store the Terraform TF state securely for this project, and only this project will be able to access it. And then I've got my 2 landing zones, the prod and the non-prod. And you can see here, and we're going to see that in more detail later, we've got subscription and resources. So when I click on the README, the benefit of the rover ignite, you can see it's populating the README automatically. I don't have to think about where is my subscription ID for my TF state, what is the ID of the subscription where I need to deploy this specific deployment. All of that is coming from the YAML file that I showed you before and the one from the platform. Okay, so by building the platform, which is not the topic of today, you are bringing a lot of metadata that will be used by this process to be able to build that. So before we execute that, I want to show you, because there's always a question, where is the Terraform? You can see line number 13, we are calling a specific landing zone that we call TF-CAF landing zone CAF solution. If I go to that folder, you see I've got a clone of that folder. This is a Terraform module, and you can see the .tf, and we are calling a module registry coming from HashiCorp, which is AZTF mod CAF Azure RM. This is what we call a meta module. This meta module contains a lot of capabilities. So you can build cloud compute resources, cognitive services, database, event hub, and so on. So we cover nearly most of the Azure services, and we inject all of that in this module. The goal here is to help our customer not to spend too much time on writing the .terraform files, but focusing on building the solution by populating the configuration file that I showed you before. Okay, this module is battle tested. We are doing integration test, regression test every day. Okay, we are receiving some PR, and what you can see here, it's very convenient for me working in the SRE team because I can branch a specific version as well, you know, on the public Git repo to be able to test maybe a new feature that we are bringing for the next version. This is the version that you will see in the November release, but at the moment, you see, I can really test, or I can also use the local AZTF mod to make really a local feedback loop very, very fast. So let's create the remote TF state container. So go back to the command that I showed you before. So you just copy paste. Note that here I'm going to impersonate using a different credential. At the moment I'm connected with my account, my local account, but my goal here is to be able to really execute in the same security context that will be used later by my pipeline. Okay, I'm not showing you the pipeline today. I'm showing you the interactive mode using the VS Code. You can use VS Code online. This is VS Code on a remote machine you see running on SSH. So I've got a VM virtual machine running on Azure, a Linux one with Docker. And this is my container. You see the CAF running on Docker in this image. So if you connect to this branch, anybody will have exactly the same runtime. You know, the pipeline, my colleague, if Francois is cloning that and want to execute, he will get the same environment on his machine. So the goal here is to make sure that we drive consistency and we get the same outcome when we execute our landing zone. So when you start this rover, you will find that the rover will be loaded. There's a specific version. We are using version 107 here, and then it's going to connect to the key vault to be able to retrieve the different credentials. So when the plan got executed, then you will be able to see something like that. You see, so Terraform execute, and we'll be able to show you how many new resources will be created. So what we do here, we create a storage container at the level 3 and at the level 4 in order to be able to store the remote TF state that will be required to build our data and analytics platform. And when it is finished, when the plan is finished, you do an apply. You see, you just change the last command with an apply, and boom, you get your storage container created. Okay, the step number 2 to create a landing zone is to call the Terraform deployment to create the subscriptions. So we go back here in our VS Code, and now we move to the folder above. You see the DataFest production, and we can click here on the landing zone. You can see this landing zone is very specific to the Cloud Adoption Framework. I'm going now to reference a remote TF state, which is my container. What I've just deployed before is going to give me some information, and I need that to grant some specific permissions to make sure that only this data landing zone will be able to have access. So for that, we are leveraging the concept of Terraform data remote data sources, and the remote TF state are going to be declared that way. And you will see as we move on the resource, more and more remote TF state would be required to connect this landing zone to the platform. And this is what we are going to do here. We are going to create a new subscription. I just remove for the billing account and enrollment account for the deployment. But now you do the same. You click on the README, and you can see all the information are populated for you. Okay, so you just copy that, and then you execute, and boom, you've got your subscriptions created. Okay, so this is on the portal. When you are done, you've got your subscription, and now you can move on to the next level, which is deploy the resources. So why do we need first to re-execute the Rover Ignite? Because if you go to, we just created a subscription, and remember, Rover Ignite is also to be able to bring you the documentation. You see those different values like the subscription ID. This one was unknown before my previous deployment. I just created my subscription. So now the Rover Ignite will update the documentation and put automatically the subscription ID. So you don't have to think about, what is my environment? I am in prod, non-prod, whatever. Just re-execute the Rover Ignite and automatically documentation will be updated. So now the next step is let's take that and deploy the level 3 resources in the landing zone. Okay, so let's open the DataFest prod project in the resources. And you can see here, I've got quite a lot. Remember the YAML I showed you before? So the YAML for the virtual network, look at that, now it's been transformed automatically into a Terraform map. This is a map of VNet, and I'm going to create a VNet in this resource group. This is the detail of my VNet and with different subnet. I got some managed identities, one for my data factory, another one for my Kubernetes cluster. You can put more. And then the next step is you copy exactly in the same way the command in the README, and you will be able to see Terraform doing a plan on all those resources. So we got quite a lot, okay? Because in Terraform, as you know, in Azure, we describe all the resources. So there's quite a lot of little objects everywhere. But the beauty of Terraform is going to build what we call a DAG, a directed acyclic graph, in memory, and knows all the dependencies. So what should be done first, then the second services, what can I do in parallel? And all of that also has been tested and validated by the monomodule that I was showing you before. But here, automatically by reading the configuration, the TFVAR, Terraform understands that it needs to create a network, a VNet, and so on. So we do the apply, and this is where we see all the different resources, you see? And then when it's done, it's complete. So you see 59 because I had a little bug during my recording, so I had to fix it, then redo another plan and apply, and then that's also the beauty. So when something goes wrong, Terraform will be clever enough to understand what's left, what has not yet been deployed, you see? And that's where it's very good to build your underlying infrastructure for your landing zone. So look at the result. When we go to the portal, now we've got a little bit more. I can see an analytics, backup, consumption, modeling, networking. So something that is the foundation of my level 3. When I go to the network, you can see the VNet, you can see some network security group. If I go to the VNet and go to the peering, you can see it's been attached to my virtual hub. All of that is high elevated privilege, okay? You don't want to delegate that privilege. As a platform ops engineer, I want to be able to control the deployment of those core services. And we are done, okay? Level 3 has been deployed. So now, maybe for you, it's not enough. Maybe you need to put much more stuff, you see, in those level 3, but you get the idea. You get the idea of those different components. So going back to the reference architecture I was showing you, this is what we have completed, the level 3. Let's move to the level 4. Okay, so let's go back to, so this is a different repo, okay? So you can see the level 4 is not anymore on the platform. Remember what I was showing you here? In the picture, we got different persona, the blue and the green. So the green makes sense to be co-located in the same repository as the platform, but as you are moving to the level 4, most of our customers are using a different Git repository for that. Okay, so and this is a repository specific for this level 4 reference implementation. And you can see here so we don't have yet, the YAML generator that I was showing you on the platform. It's going to come for the level 4, but the focus on the open source community has been to build this YAML file on the platform to make sure that at least up to the vending machine and the level 3 deployment, we get a very good repetitive pattern. It's coming very soon here, but because we don't have it, this is why here you got just the TLVAR file. So same idea, you come to the README, you will have to tweak a little bit the security credential. You can see here, I'm pointing to a different key vault compared to the one for the platform, because this is now the one specific for my level 4 DataFest, data billing, reference implementation. And this one has only access to the 2 subscriptions that have been created before. And I'm going to reuse my base Terraform code, but I'm going to inject a different folder, which is all this folder that you've got here. And the target subscription will be my production subscription that we have created. So if I show you, this is slightly different here. We got private endpoints that's going to be created for an AKS, a data factory. I've got some machine learning workspace. I've got some machine learning compute instance. I've got Databricks workspace. I've got a data factory. I've got a data factory integration runtime. You see something very specific to a data landing zone. And what you need to do is, if you want to deploy that, so you need to come here on the rover, on the terminal, and you need to log in. Okay, so first of all, what I haven't said, but in the level 3, there's also an Azure AD group that has been created, and you need to be member of that group to be able to do what you see here. Okay, so not everybody will be able to deploy that. So you need to be like a DataFest, a data management, a level 4 contributor. And if you are part of that group, then you will be able to log in. So I'm going to log in, take my rover command from the README, and here we go. So here, Terraform is going to call the CAF module exactly in the same way, but what you will see here will be more specific to your data services. So I'm going to do an apply, and you will find a long process. So it's going to take roughly 10 minutes because we got Databricks, AKS cluster that we are deploying. We got a machine learning instance compute node that we are also deploying. So all of that will be deployed, and you will be able to see Terraform orchestrating automatically the dependencies, Event Hub, Databricks workspace. You can see here some are complete, and now we are doing the AKS cluster. AKS cluster are done, and now we are finishing. You see, no, it's not done. It's still processing. And now, the Kubernetes cluster are done, and we are finishing with the private endpoint. Okay, and we are done. So this is, you see, exactly the same experience that I was showing you, except that now what you can do here is very limited because you can only deploy in the resource groups that were created at the level 3. So meaning that with this specific delegated account, you can only do in the resource group the deployment of the services. Okay, but you cannot create new resource group, you cannot change stuff because you are not authorized to do that. And you won't be able to touch, for example, the networking services. So it's really this concept of delegating up to the level 4 an environment when I can also bring a bit of SRE or DevOps expertise in my project team and give the autonomy of my project team to be able to build their custom reference architecture. We are done. Okay, from a Terraform perspective, we are done. So let me show you what we have deployed. Okay, so if I refresh, you can see there's additional resource group. You can see one for Databricks. You can see one for AKS that has been created. And if I zoom a little bit, you will see that in the networking, I got much more. So I got some private endpoints, some network interface, I got a load balancer. And let's have a look on what we have deployed in the data factory. So when you click to the preparation resource group, You will find here a storage account. This is my data lake, DLS V2. I've got an event hub namespace, and then I've got the data factory. So you can see the data factory is connected through a private endpoint. Okay, so all of that configured directly. When you go to the workspace, you can see you have access to the data factory. You can see the runtime, the self-hosted runtime. It is not yet connected to a VM, because I don't know if you have noticed, but I have not put already the virtual machine. I have not reused the key to be able to attach the compute VM to the self-hosted runtime. But once you do it, then it will become as running. Let's have a look on the Databricks. So this is my Databricks workspace. Okay, I've got two Databricks workspace. Let's connect. And we are in. So now you can notice here on the compute, I have not deployed the compute. You got two options with Terraform. You can decide to use the Databricks Terraform provider, and that's what we've got in our repository. We need to do an additional deployment to create the compute clusters, and you will be able to fine-tune with all the options provided by Databricks themselves. So it's not the CAF module anymore, but you will use the same, the rover, with what we call an add-on, and this add-on will help you to deploy your Databricks cluster. There's another option. Some customers want to use Data Factory, and in Data Factory you got the link compute services, and you can attach or you can ask Data Factory to create the cluster on demand. So meaning that when you run the job from Data Factory, the Databricks compute cluster will be created and then being destroyed. Let's have a look on the Azure Machine Learning workspace. So this is the workspace that was created. And we got the compute instance. That this one was created by the Terraform code that I just showed you. And what we've done here manually, because this one doesn't exist yet with Terraform, I've been able to attach through an inference cluster, the Kubernetes cluster that I was creating. Okay, so the Kubernetes cluster is a private cluster, but because of the private endpoint, they can talk to each other. And then when it will be finished, I will be able to use that, for example, to push my the model. So if you start training the model, but that's not my job anymore. You see, my job as a DevOps engineer is to bring you with an environment when you can do your work. You can go to the notebook, you can connect to the compute resource, you can train your model, but that's where my job will finish, and I will hand over that to the data team. And that's what we have completed. That was the level 4. So if I summarize, when we discuss about this building a Terraform landing zone for a data project, you see we got two persona. That's very important to understand that. Okay, there's a platform ops persona, and there is also a data platform ops. So meaning that the level 4 that I show you can be fully delegated. And you don't have necessarily to use also the CAF Terraform modules. I've got some customers who want to use their own modules, you see. So we build with the CAF Terraform up to the level 3. You see, we provide the platform components, the guardrails, and all of that. We give them a managed identity or service principal, and then they can use whatever they want to be able to build this level 4. So the goal here of this framework is really to open the foundation to help your project team to be a bit more autonomous. Okay, obviously you can use the CAF, but if you don't want to use the CAF for the level 4, we are completely okay with that. Some customers maybe want to use PowerShell, Azure CLI, the portal. It's okay. We tend to promote infrastructure as code in the cloud adoption framework and recommend to automate as much as you can, because the more you automate, the better. And that's where we found that you learn. It's a very good way for learning. This is personally the way I'm learning every day. You see, by doing some Terraform, by gluing services together, that's how I'm discovering new services and I'm learning how the service is working. So for me, as a solution architect, cloud solution architect at Microsoft, I use that as my way of learning. So infrastructure as code that I was showing you today, you don't need necessarily to be a Terraform developer. But what you will have to do is at least to understand how to structure those Terraform files by composing, and composing the different services together. VNet, machine learning workspace, Databricks, private link, an AKS cluster, a container registry. That's what you will be able to define. And then you put that in the code and you test your deployment. A good deployment is something that you can deploy from scratch. You can deploy everything, and then you can destroy everything. But also, when it has been deployed, you should be able to change it over time, okay? And don't forget, that's what we call the day-to type of activities. So the lifecycle management, post-go live, it's not going to stop. You are going to enhance, you are going to patch, you are going to upgrade the Terraform provider, you are going to upgrade the CAF framework. And this is something important to understand, that the lifecycle management will happen after that. So let's have a quick summary on the Azure Landing Zone. So it's an open source and community driven. It's an enterprise approach for infrastructure as code. You can see it's very, very opinionated, but on purpose. It's to drive, consistency on the common ways of working. So it will be much easier for us to help you, and it will be much easier for you to come back to us and propose, improvement as well. It's part of the Cloud Adoption Framework, which is a global initiative at Microsoft. Terraform is just one of the child project. We don't have, so you don't have necessarily to use Terraform, but if you want to use ARM template, Bicep, PowerShell, Azure CLI, we are okay as far as you are following the overall guidance and architecture. It's a lower entry to infrastructure as code. It's not easy, infrastructure as code doesn't make the cloud easier. It just gives you the opportunity to bring repeatable process and help you to really go deeper in what you are doing. So because you go faster, you can do more. That's basically the benefit that you will get with the infrastructure as code. And we call it the site reliability engineering starting pack. Okay, it's very good. Your company want to embrace infrastructure as code, we are here to help you. So we got this, if you want to start building your first landing zone, by the way, the November release will include a lot of what you've seen today. So how to build from the ground up, all the platform, how to use the vending machine to be able to generate, to create your landing zone, and then how can you build your level 4 as well on top of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laurent. Thank you so much for this deep dive. It was a lot of questions. Maybe I go through the Q&A. So thanks. Please input all your Q&A in the Q&A section of the chat. I will read some of the questions to Laurent so that he can answer more in details. The first question was around generating the landing zones. Do I need to know the Terraform language, or should I just edit some YAML configuration? And the rover will generate all the necessary files.
Yes, so that's a very good question. Yeah, this is definitely the goal. This is the goal of the community, is to lower the barrier to entry. We want to make this infrastructure as code much easier, because when we talk to customer, we realize that not everybody is a developer, not everybody is a DevOps engineer as well. Okay, so meaning that writing Terraform, even if it's easier than writing a Python code, it's not trivial when you need to deal with some very complex reference architecture. Don't forget, those reference architecture will be used to host your production workload. So you need to make sure that over time it is very stable. So the goal for us is to leverage the YAML file that I was showing you, because they are very easy to read, and to bring as well, some advanced feature that you got with VS Code, like a language server. So you can really check the syntax, you know exactly if it is correct or not correct. So we are not yet in the final version of that, but what I show you today on the platform is already a good enough implementation. When you, with the Rover Ignite, you can start from YAML, generate your TFR file, and with the Rover, you can deploy your solutions. So you don't have necessarily to be a Terraform developer. If you got issues, we got an open source GitHub repository. Go and post your issues. We got a Gitter as well room when you can chat and discuss with the community. this is where you will be able to find some help and support as well.
Thank you, Laurent. And following up on that, besides Terraform, is there any other tools we can use to achieve the same thing?
Yeah, plenty. I mentioned PowerShell, I mentioned Bicep, ARM template, and on the links that Francois put in the chat at the beginning of the session, you will find the upstream project that we are working with, and they explain everything with AZOps, so how you can deploy using ARM template. You can use the portal also. You can go to the portal and you can build your enterprise scale from the portal. Okay. I guess what I'm showing you today depends on the level of maturity or where you are in infrastructure as code. The goal is we want to meet you where you are. Okay, so some customers want to do everything with Terraform, and this framework can be a good, but maybe not the only one, but a good solution to address the problem. But we are not the only one. There's other solutions on the market, and if you decide to use TerraGrunt, if you decide to use Ansible, Chef, Puppet, that's okay. The goal of Microsoft is to be an open platform and to support you. But this one is a very specific opinionated framework to achieve that goal. And that's one of the community I'm leading as well.
Thank you. And another question related to the different levels is, can I have multiple level 4 zones pointing to the same level 3?
Yes, you can. That's the goal of the vending machine. You see, the goal of the vending machine at the moment is 1 level 3, 1 level 4. But if you need to go a little bit more open, all of that is driven by role-based access control. Okay, so when you deploy your level 3, the platform owners will be able to tweak a little bit the role-based access control to say maybe you need to access to this data landing zone, and maybe I don't know, you got a data integration landing zone, you got, you name it, okay? But you will be able potentially from your level 4 to access to different level 3 Terraform states.
Thanks for the great landing zone introduction. To deploy in my environment at my own pace, what are the resources available?
Not enough. We don't have enough, and I know we need to do more. I'm glad that we've been given this opportunity today in this DataFest festival to present what we are doing. Our goal is to provide more documentation, more step-by-step. It's still not as simple and easy as we wanted, but we got a great set of videos to help you to get started. We got some starter kit that I was showing you before. We are going to make a big refresh in November, so stay tuned on the November refresh. And the goal is really to do it in your pace. So you will be able to start small and then being able to expand. So, and this is where we sit in the cloud adoption framework. Either you go big with an enterprise scale, or you want to start small and then grow gradually. You want to start maybe on this specific aspect of enterprise scale. Maybe later you want to implement more as you learn, because the learning journey is something very important. So in all the hyperlinks that you add in the chat, you will be able to find some of the links. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. If you search for Laurent Leslie, you will find me. Connect with me. We are quite an active community, and you will be able to follow as well all the news and updates that we are publishing on this open source framework.
Thank you so much, Laurent. I think we have gone through all the questions asked so far on the Q&A. Please rate them if you want.
And guys, before you go, it's very important. So your feedback is super important. So this is the QR code. Don't leave without scanning the QR code. This is how you help me, you help Francois, you help all this group to understand if it was spot on, if you need more. So if you find that there's not enough information available, just bring your honest feedback, and that will help us as well to understand what you need and where we can help you more on this journey. But I hope that today I was able to show you how you can go very fast, from the platform through the vending machine to create your landing zone and your data and analytics platform on Azure with Terraform.
Thank you very much.